This is a Melex 512G gas-powered golf cart. I've had it for several years now. It was made, I believe, in 1996. I purchased it used, so I'm not positive about the date, but everything I can figure out points to about 1996. And I thought I'd share some of the tips, maintenance tips that I've learned over the past few years in making this thing run properly. Take this seat off so you can see inside here. The problems that I originally had with this thing were hard starting, poor running, and backfiring. And the backfiring problem was really irritating because it would overheat if you drove it very far. For instance, I drive this down to our clubhouse in a gated community, and there's a driving range down there, so I like to go down there and hit some balls. It's about a mile down there, and by the time you got all the way down there, a mile away, the engine would be so hot that when you stopped it, it would backfire once on you. And even slowing down, sometimes it would backfire. And I spent a lot of time replacing components and finally figured out that it was just overheating. And so what I did to fix that was, the first thing I did was I wrapped the exhaust pipe and muffler in this exhaust wrap. And that didn't fully do the job. I was surprised that it didn't cut the heat down enough, but it didn't. So I added a fan. This fan right here is a 12-volt computer fan, high-speed computer fan that runs at about 3,200 RPM and puts out 120 cubic feet of air per minute. And that does the job. It just works perfect. So I just wired that up to the negative post right here with the black wire of the fan, and then the red wire goes to the solenoid right here. And that way it turns on when you turn the ignition key on to start the cart. Works fantastic. So you can see when I turn the key on, you can hear that fan go on. And then if I step on the accelerator here, you can see that it starts and runs nicely. There's some important things here as far as adjustments go. And the number one thing really to begin with to make this cart run well is do not use ethanol blended gas. It just does not start or run well with ethanol blended gas. And here in the Austin, Texas area, it's like impossible to find pure gas. If you go to Home Depot, it costs like $25 a gallon, and I have to drive 50 miles out of town to even get it from a pump, and then it's still twice the price. But I've figured out how to make my own ethanol-free gas by extracting the ethanol out, and I'll do a separate post on that. It's important to get the accelerator adjustment correct, and there's a nut right down here, right next to this micro switch. It lets you adjust the micro switch in relation to the accelerator pedal and the actual accelerator on the carburetor. And if I push on this accelerator pedal, you can hear a click at the micro switch. And so when you hear that click, and then you look at the carburetor, you should see a click first, and then the carburetor accelerator start to move after that. That's the proper sequence. Click, carburetor starts to move. If I turn the key on, you can see that starts very nicely that way. When you change the oil, the drain plug is in the back of the engine, and the oil just drains into a pan that doesn't have another hole in it. It just gathers back there. It's a poor design, so I usually jack up the front of the cart so the oil will drain out of the pan out the back. And it holds about 1 quart of oil, and there's no oil filter. It's worth mentioning the drive belt that's right here. I tried a couple of different drive belts before I finally found the right one, and the first one I got was actually made for a snowmobile. And if you don't get the right drive belt on here, you'll notice that the engine speeds up and slows down while you're driving along the road. It just doesn't run smoothly. This belt is made by Comet, and it's the correct belt to fit in here. And I'll put a parts list online of all of the parts that I've found for this cart. And then I've done some custom things on here. Also, I put in some gauges into the dash. I've got a gauge for fuel, and this is the fuel sending unit that I installed, and battery voltage and temperature. And I really like this temperature gauge. It's a dual temperature gauge. The red needle is for the engine temperature. I just mounted a sensor right here. And then the green needle there is for the ambient temperature, and I just put the sensor under here for that. So if you turn the key on, you can see the temperature is about even right now because I haven't run the engine much. But normally the engine temperature will go up to maybe 100 degrees or so with that fan running.